This is Tony T here from TonySpace.com with our college football pick show. This is week 12, part 2, 10 games for you. So we'll have 25 up on the board for Saturday. I'm half done for that 50 games on Saturday for you from college football. So check them out. For more free pick videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Lots of free content on our channel for myself and our team of cappers here at TonySpace.com, making it a great channel to subscribe to. Hit us up with that like, that thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. Then visit our site, TonySpace.com. We're a multi-capper site showcasing top performers in our industry. Click the links of the hot cappers, get signed up for long-term passes. Top performers like Sean Higgs, DeAndre, Brian, guys you know from our live shows, our YouTube video as well. Ron Crawford's been on absolute fire with the last 30 days, last 7 days, last 24 hours. He's been on absolute fire right now. Liz, premium pictures of the page with best bets and more will be locked and loaded for this card here on Wednesday. And then our promo code at TonyT at checkout will knock off 15%. The link is in the description to get signed up. So let's go ahead. Let's get this one underway. UTEP and Missouri State. This one for Saturday. All right, we got UTEP here 2-7 after a 30-27 home defeat to Jacksonville State. The Miners had movement in the passing game and rushed for 126 yards for 3.5 yards a carry. On defense, they limited the Gamecocks' passing attack by allowed 275 yards rushing for 7.1 yards per pass attempt. Skylar Locklear here, 16 of 32 passing for 244 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick. He rushed for 82 yards and 2 scores. Missouri State now 6-3 with a 21-17 road win at Liberty. The Bears had movement in the passing game and rushed for only 45 yards. They allowed 202 yards rushing for 4.7 yards a carry with 5.6 yards per pass attempt. Jacob Clark here, 20 of 33 passing for 286 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Bears have won 4 straight. They averaged 5.9 yards per rush against Conference USA at home. UTEP on the road in conference rushing for 3.2 yards a carry with bad quarterback play. On defense in conference play, on the road, the Miners allowing 33 points per game. UTEP 0-3 of the spread on the road against winning teams. Pick here Missouri State here minus 4.5. Colorado State and New Mexico going off here on Saturday. Colorado State fell at 2-7 after a 42-10 home defeat to UNLV. The Rams were limited through the air and rushed for 103 yards for 3 yards a carry. On defense, they allowed 571 yards to the Rebels with poor work against the run and pass. Jackson Brousseau here, 13-22 passing for 153 yards and a touchdown. Mexico sits at 6-3 after a 40-35 road win at UNLV. The Lobos had great pass performance and rushed for 131 yards for 4.5 yards a carry. On defense, they held the Rebels to 3 yards per rush with 382 yards passing for 8.1 yards per pass attempt. Jack Lane here, 17-22 for 342 yards with 3 touchdowns and a pick. Colorado State has averaged 10 points per game in their past 3 games and were held to 10 points to a bad defensive team in UNLV. The Rams on the road in conference play here, allowing 6.1 yards per rush, 9.7 yards per pass attempt. New Mexico at home in the Mountain West rushing for 5.2 yards a carry with 71% completion rate. They limited conference foes to 3.7 yards per rush at home. The Lobos 4-0 the spread at home on a road game. Pick here New Mexico minus 14.5. Middle Tennessee State and Western Kentucky going off here on Saturday. Middle Tennessee State fell to 1-8 after a 56-30 home defeat to FIU. The Blue Raiders had movement in the passing game, were held to 33 yards rushing. They allowed 401 yards to the Panthers by poorly defending the run and pass. Nicholas Vitiato, 26 of 37 passing for 242 yards with 3 touchdowns and a pick. Western Kentucky now 7-2 after a 35-16 home victory against New Mexico State. The Hilltoppers really had a good passing performance and rushed for 128 yards for 3.5 yards a carry. Defensively, they limited the Aggies to 176 yards as they allowed just 66 yards rushing and 110 passing. Rodney Tisdale here, 30 of 38 passing for 301 yards with 4 touchdowns and a pick. Hilltoppers have won 5 of 6. MTSU 0-5 against the Conference USA. Their pass defense has been poor in conferences. They allow 8.5 yards per pass attempt. Offensively, in the Conference USA, the Blue Raiders rushing for 3.7 yards a carry and are inefficient in the passing game. The Hilltoppers defended well in Conference USA and throw for 284 yards for 7.2 yards per pass attempt. The Blue Raiders 3-7 to the spread on the road in the conference. WKU 9-6 to the spread as home favorite. Pick here will be Western Kentucky minus 13.5. South Alabama and UL Monroe for Saturday. UL Monroe here will be the host team. South Alabama now 2-7 after a 31-22 home defeat to Louisiana. The Jaguars had movement in their passing game and rushed for 165 yards for 4.6 yards a carry. On defense, they allowed 161 yards rushing for 3.5 yards a carry and 13.6 yards per pass attempt. Bishop Davenport here, 20 of 33 passes for 203 yards with a touchdown and a pick. He rushed for 42 yards and a score. UL Monroe fell to 3-6 after a 31-6 home defeat to Old Dominion. The Warhawks had some movement in the passing game and rushed for 132 yards for 2.8 yards a carry. On defense, they allowed 3.6 yards per rush with 231 yards passing for 10 yards per pass attempt. Aiden Armenta, 12 of 20 passing for 150 yards with a touchdown and a pick. UL Monroe has lost 5 straight, averaging 11 points per game. South Alabama 1-1 on the road in the Sun Belt. On the road in conference, they are getting great quarterback play and rushing for 4.4 yards a carry. UL Monroe at home in conference, giving up 247 yards passing for 8.2 yards per pass attempt. Pick here will be on South Alabama minus 4.5. Texas State and Southern Miss, this one for Saturday. We've got here Texas State 3-6 after a 42-39 road defeat to Louisiana. The Bobcats had a huge passing performance and rushed for 168 yards for 7 yards a carry. On defense, they allowed 3.7 yards per rush in the game with 192 yards passing for 7.1 yards per pass attempt. Brad Jackson, 26 of 33 passing for 360 yards with 3 touchdowns and an interception. Southern Miss here 7-2 with their 27-21 road victory at Arkansas State. Golden Eagles had a huge passing performance in the game, rushed for 172 yards for 4 yards a carry defensively. They limited the Redwoods on the ground with 337 yards passing, though, for 6.4 yards per pass attempt. Braylon Braxton, 20 of 29 passing for 228 yards with a touchdown and a pick. Texas State in their past 4 games allowed an average of 46 points per game. The Bobcats on the road here in conference play, throwing for 345 yards for nearly 11 yards per pass attempt. They give up 71% completion rate on the road in the Sun Belt. Southern Miss at home in the conference put up 44 points per game with 5.1 yards per rush and 9.8 yards per pass attempt. The Bobcats have gone over in 4 straight. The pick here, Texas State and Southern Miss over 65.5. UCF and Texas Tech for Saturday. UCF fell to 4-5 with their 30-27 home defeat to Houston. The Knights were ineffective through the air and rushed for 146 yards for 4.9 yards a carry. On defense, they allowed 210 yards rushing for 4.3 yards per carry and 7.2 yards per pass attempt. Taven Jackson, 15 of 29 passes for 136 yards with a pick. Texas Tech improved to 9-1 with their 29-7 home victory against BYU. The Red Raiders had movement in their passing game and rushed for 149 yards for 3.5 yards a carry. Defensively, they limited the Cougars on the ground and allowed 188 yards passing for 4.9 yards a carry. Baron Morton, 17 of 32 passing for 219 yards and a touchdown. And the Red Raiders 3-0 at home against the Big 12, winning by 22 or greater points. UCF 0-3 on the road against the conference with a notable defeat by 27 at Baylor. The Knights on the road in conference play putting up 11 points per game. Really bad quarterback play there. On defense against the Big 12 on the road, they're allowing 5 yards per rush with 68% completion rate for 7.2 yards per pass attempt. The Raiders are at home against the Big 12, putting up 38 points a game, giving up just 8 points per game there. Wow. Nice 3-7 to the spread on the road, facing teams that average 5.9 yards per play or greater. Texas Tech 12-3 of the spread at home as a favorite. We'll take Texas Tech here minus 23.5. NC State and Texas Tech going off here on Saturday. NC State now 4-3 with their 48-36 home victory against Georgia Tech. The Wolfpack gained 583 yards with great work in the run and passing game. They allowed 4.6 yards per rush to the Yellow Jackets with 408 yards passing for 11 yards per pass attempt. C.J. Bailey here, 24 of 32 passing for 340 yards with 2 touchdowns. He rushed for 34 yards and a score. Miami 7-2 with a 38-10 home victory against Syracuse. Hurricanes had a great day of throwing the football and rushed for 124 yards for 3.9 yards a carry. On defense, they limited the Orange through the air and allowed 161 yards rushing for 4.2 yards per carry. Carson Beck, 18-24 passing for 247 yards and a touchdown. NC State defensively on the road in conference, allowing 41 points per game with poor work against the pass. Offensively on the road in conference, they averaged 34 points per game with 5.5 yards per rush and 283 yards passing for 7.6 yards per pass attempt. Miami in conference play at home put up 34 points per game with 73% completion rate, 8.2 yards per pass attempt. The Wolfpack have gone over in 6 of 8. The Hurricanes 3-1 the over at home against winning teams. Pick here will be NC State and Miami over 55.5. Penn State and Michigan State going off on Saturday. We got Penn State now 3-6 after their 27-24 home defeat to Indiana. The Lions had movement in through the air and rushed for 117 yards for 3.5 yards a carry. On defense, they limited the Hoosiers on the ground and allowed 218 yards passing for 7 yards per pass attempt. Ethan Gruckmeyer, 22 of 31 passing for 218 yards with a touchdown and a pick. Michigan State fell to 3-6 after their 23-20 road defeats in Minnesota. The Spartans had good movement through the air and rushed for 156 yards for 3.8 yards a carry. Defensively, they limited the Golden Gophers in the passing game and allowed 104 yards rushing for 4.5 yards per carry. Alessio Milivojevic hit 20 of 28 passing for 311 yards and a touchdown. He was sacked 7 times. Both teams are in a 6-game losing streak. The Lions' defense on the road against the Big Ten has given up 35 points per game, 5.9 yards per rush, 75% completion rate, 8.7 yards per pass attempt. Wow, Penn State defense. Wow, what's happened to them? They've gotten really poor quarterback play on the road. The Spartans have defended the pass well in Big Ten play. At home, the Nittany Lions have failed to cover 8 of 10. The Spartans have covered 5 of 6. We'll take Michigan State here, plus 7.5. Oklahoma and Alabama, this one for Saturday. Oklahoma now 7-2 after a 33-27 road win at Tennessee. The Sooners were limited through the air and rushed for 192 yards for 5.5 yards a carry. On defense, they limited the Vols to 63 rushing yards, but 393 yards passing for 8.7 yards per pass attempt. John Mateer here, 19-29 passes for 159 yards with a pick. He rushed for 80 yards and a score. Alabama now 8-1 after a 20-9 home victory against LSU. Crimson Tide rushed for 2.1 yards to carry and had movement in the passing game. Defensively, they limited the Tigers to 2.3 yards per rush with 173 yards passing for 5.4 yards per pass attempt. Ty Simpson, 21 of 35 for 277 yards with a touchdown. Mateer, since returning back from an injury, completing under 60% of his passes for just 5.9 yards per pass attempt. He has thrown 2 touchdowns, 4 picks in those 4 games. It is the Sooners' 4th road game in 5. The Crimson Tide 5-0 at home and has covered all 5 games. Oklahoma's losses came to Ole Miss at home by 8 and Texas on the road by 17. The Sooners on the road in SEC play have struggled with quarterback efficiency and pass defense. Pick here Alabama -6. App State and James Madison, this one for action on Saturday. All right, we got App State falling here to 4-5 after a 25-23 home defeat at Georgia Southern. The Mountaineers had good movement in the passing game and rushed for 77 yards for 3.3 yards a carry. On defense, they allowed 3.7 yards per rush to the Eagles, with 352 yards passing for 9.5 yards per pass attempt. A.J. Swan, 34 of 51 passing for 348 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick. James Madison 8-1 after a 35-23 road win at Marshall. The Dukes were great in the passing game and rushed for 139 yards for 4 yards per carry. On defense, they limited the Thundering Herd through the air and allowed 248 yards rushing for nearly 5 yards a carry. Lonzo Barnett here, 14-24 passing for 270 yards with 3 touchdowns and a pick. App State has covered both road games in the Sun Belt. Mountaineers defensively on the road in the Sun Belt, allowing 3.7 yards per rush with 59% completion rate. They passed for 329 yards per game on the road in conference. JMU at home in the Sun Belt, allowing 8.5 yards per pass attempt. Pick here will be App State here, plus 21. For more free pick videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Lots of free picks on our channel for myself and our team of cappers here at Tony'sPicks.com, making this a great channel to subscribe to. Hit us up with that like, that thumbs up. We greatly appreciate it. And then visit our site, Tony'sPicks.com, for our best bets. Our premium plays are there. Check out our leaderboards for our top performers, guys you know on our sites, like Sean, DeAndre, Brian, Ron Crawford, Alessandro. These are guys you see on our live shows as well as our YouTube video, Chris as well. And our promo code TonyT at checkout knocks off that 15%. The link is in the description to get signed up. That will do it for now. I'm Tony T, and we'll talk to you later.